As our communities grow, unaffordability affects so many Central Texans. The KVUE Defenders looked at ways all levels of income can afford to own a home in Austin. Some people make too much money for government assistance, but too little to afford market rates.
KVUE Defenders investigated the options for those caught in the middle. Here's investigative reporter Erica Proffer.
It's not about picking sides for Steve Mims.
The death toll is rising.
This documentary filmmaker showcases controversial issues facing our nation.
No, I love it. It's really kind of amazing.
Winning national film festivals since the 1990s. But when the city of Austin tried to pass a citywide zoning law,
We follow the money.
Steve steered his filmmaking towards home.
We try to get into the mythologies about density.
He released a film called Zoned Out. It's the story about folks who live in Austin and who could be impacted by widespread land development code changes.
That's where the money is.
Some urban density housing advocates may call it a NIMBY documentary. NIMBY stands for Not in My Backyard. Steve says it's not true. He says he supports affordable housing and density, even in his neighborhood, if done right.
It's just a very complicated issue.
He does not like widespread upzoning. He feels it will erase the history of some areas and increase property taxes. Upzoning is a change in land development code. It allows different types of homes in a neighborhood, like multifamily units on a single-family lot.
Building it doesn't mean that it's affordable.
The KVUE Defenders found that's exactly what's happening. We pulled demolition and building permits across Austin and found some houses were torn down so builders could create two smaller homes. It adds density, but we found the prices near the $1 million mark.
No one is saying go in and bulldoze the whole neighborhood.
Scott Turner is a home builder and president of the Home Builders Association of Greater Austin. He advocates for density housing.
The real problem we have is today's code limits our housing supply in a way that is unsustainable unless you can afford a $1 million home.
Austin's current land code dates back to the 1980s. Updates added along the way. A builder must get approval from more than a dozen different city departments. But before the first shovel goes in the ground, it can take months to get all of the needed permits. What would it take to have something to where, I could own it, not, not rent, but own it for $250,000, $300,000, maybe up to $400,000?
I mean, you would need to take a hard look at the city's land development code for starters.
Austin's land development code comes with a stack of fees accumulated from the city departments. The Austin Board of Realtors and Home Builders of Greater Austin released an analysis of the fees. The report shows construction fees alone would make up 20% of a home loan priced for buyers in Austin's median income range.
The application fee alone is around $15,000.
This Texas Real Estate Research Center report shows Austin charges developers more expensive and more types of fees than Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, especially for infill housing. That's urban homes on vacant or underutilized land. This report shows total infill housing development fees in Austin averages more than $41,000. Compare that to $5,000 in Houston and $13,000 in Dallas.
That's a lot of money.
And standard fees include parkland fee based on the type of project, stormwater fees, and impact fees. The KVUE Defenders found hundreds of fees throughout different types of building permits, such as $320 to place construction entrance ahead signs on the right-of-way, and $863 for a tree plan review and consultation. In Austin, most fees are the same type and cost, whether it's building a single-family home or a 200-unit apartment complex.
The smaller your project here, the more expensive it is per unit.
Re-inspections can add thousands to a build cost.
So the smaller properties and the smaller projects, which are infill housing, which is what we do, have a whole lot more barriers.
Barriers that increase cost make it harder for a family to buy a house. A standard single-family lot in Austin must be at least 5,750 square feet. It's about 1/10 of an acre. The city limits how many homes can be built on that property, no more than 2. So to add density and to put 2 families in 2 separate structures on one lot, builders like Scott construct what's called an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU. It's a dwelling, a home, behind the main home. But ADUs have additional requirements. Austin Code limits the size of an ADU to 1,100 square feet or less, or no more than 15% of the lot size. And builders must work around certain trees. Plus, there are other parking and utility regulations.
And that leads to a lot of really good little houses, being torn down simply because the code doesn't encourage us to keep them.
Developers built 869 ADUs since January 2020. More than half of them were in Austin's East Side, an area experiencing gentrification for decades now.
We're losing houses left and right because it is just easier to demolish and rebuild than it is to preserve.
Lindsay Darrington is the executive director for Preservation Austin. Her group fights to protect older and historic places. Historic zoning laws cover less than 1% of Austin.
Neighborhoods grow and cities evolve, but keeping that balance of preserving these places that matter is really important. We need to preserve Austin too.
Demolition records show 2,081 homes torn down across Austin since 2020. 720 of them, more than a third, destroyed in Austin's East Side.
We're losing Black families, we're losing Mexican-American families whose history defines those places. So these buildings aren't meant to be preserved in a vacuum. They connect us to our history, they connect us to our future, and they're really important for us to have that connection to our sense of home as Austinites.
Are ADUs the solution?
I think they're a solution. I think they could be a more accessible solution if they were more affordable.
Scott says going back to some older standards would help too.
Lot size. So 2,000 to 3,000 square feet was considered an adequate lot size back in the 30s. In the grand scheme of things, minimum lot sizes are one of the ways in which our housing supply is limited.
People come to the neighborhood and they're like, oh my God, it's so nice.
The lots in Steve's Rosedale neighborhood are smaller than Austin's current standards. The neighborhood was mapped out nearly a century ago. It includes historic buildings like the Moore Hancock Farmstead off Sinclair Avenue.
They was very clever. They said like people want a little front yard, they want a little backyard. It's not an estate. There's small lots, small houses.
Steve's lot is almost half of Austin's now standard size, and the road out front isn't wide enough for both street parking and through traffic. It's dense.
It's more about
But this density
the humanity of the place.
is not affordable. Homes up for sale here call for nearly $1 million.
And they're not vast.
Steve's appraised home value doubled in the last 5 years. He must save more than $1,000 a month to cover property taxes.
It's become a big investment. And not an investment for a middle-class family, but investments for corporations also.
Corporate landlords are what he doesn't want in his backyard.
They're not vested in the community. Their interest is to have shareholder value.
Have to sell to a developer, I would imagine.
This is why he made the film, why he turned his attention home, his home that he didn't want to lose. In Austin for the KVUE Defenders, I'm Erica Proffer.